Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are doing the next in my origin build lineup, that being Gale. Now, obviously Gale is a wizard, so a wizard build would usually be fairly standard. I mean, you just level up, pick up scrolls, pick up the powerful spells, and you're pretty much good to go. There's not too much. I mean, obviously wizard by itself is a very interesting class, but I feel like it's more just about being able to cast big spells than anything else. And I really wanted to try and do something just ever so slightly different, and with something that I feel ties well into his backstory and kind of the plot of the game that surrounds him. So I think what I've got here today is going to be interesting, but it's not the most complicated build in the world. It's just like, hey, if you try playing Gale this way, you're going to have fun. So let's just get straight into it. First up, we are going to be starting as a wizard. Gale is a wizard first and foremost, and as such, I want to keep it that way, at least to start. But we're not really going to be using wizard as our main class in this build, so we're only going to be picking up utility options. Now, this may seem like, oh, but then in the early game you can't do anything. Well, again, you can get to level 2 straight away, so that doesn't really matter. But also, you know, you have other party members, just like Gale be a support character for the first couple levels. But anyways, we'll just go for some utility options right now. For our cantrips, and being friends, mage hand and minor illusion. And for our spells, we're just going to take all of the utility options. We need mage armor because we're not getting unarmored defense, and we are using clothing, as you can see. Longstride and enhanced sleep are always good, disguise self is always good, featherfall is always good, and shield is one of the best level 1 spells in the game, but doesn't require us to have a high intelligence, so we can just slap it in there. And as for our stats, this is what we're going to be using. Dexterity is at 14 for our AC with Mage Armor. Constitution is at 16 for concentration saves and, you know, just overall HP. We're quite squishy as a spellcaster, so we definitely want to be able to have as much HP as we can squeeze out. Wisdom is at 12 because it's kind of our other, like, mind stat, our mental stat. We're going to be bumping up intelligence through an item, you probably already guessed that, so we don't need intelligence to be high, so we might as well just put the rest of those points into wisdom, and charisma is going to be our main spellcasting stat, so we want that at around 16, and we don't need strength at all, so that's been dumped. As for our proficiencies, Gale comes with the Sage background, giving him Arcana and History, and as such I've also gone with Persuasion for his human stat, and then Insight and Investigation for his proficiencies as a wizard. There we go. Next up at Wizard level 2, we are going to be choosing our subclass, and the game has very kindly gone and picked it up for us already. We are going with Evocation. I want to make Gale a very, very big damage blaster caster wizard, because at the end of the day, yes, we can come up with these complex strategies and certain themes, but there's nothing more fun than just throwing fucking fireballs over and over again, or shooting lightning bolts, or conjuring down big ice storms. I want to make Gale a chaotic elemental caster, full of big blasts, and Evocation is going to make it so that our teammates don't hate us for playing that way. Because what Evocation, just at level 2, is going to do, is it's going to give us Sculpt spells that creates pockets of safety within our Evocation spells. Allies automatically succeed their saving throws against these spells, and take no damage from them, meaning that we can cast all of our big AoE damage spells to our heart's content without worrying if our allies are going to get caught in the crossfire. This is the main reason I even went to level 2 with Wizard, because again, if we want to make this big blaster caster that does a fuck ton of damage, then we want this to be able to make sure that we're not dealing that fuck ton of damage to our allies. So that's why we've gone for Evocation here. As for our spells, we do get to pick 2 more, and we're just going to pick up the like another utility option that's fun, find familiar. And then the next one can be whatever you like. I find Grease does tend to be quite useful in a lot of situations. We only get to prepare 1 spell at the moment, and as you can see I went ahead and learned some spells from scrolls, because we are going to be able to use scrolls in this build, so I just picked up a couple. But here we'll just keep shield for now, although we do need mage armor to start, but you can but you'll see that we'll be able to put more spells on in a moment. And then at level 3, we are going to be jumping over to our multi-class, which is going to be our primary class for this build, and you probably already guessed it, we are going with Sorcerer. And now there's a few reasons for this. One, I absolutely believe that with Gale, right, he would eventually kind of... how do I word this, really? You know what, let's just actually get into the subclass first. The subclass we're choosing is Wild Magic, and this is why. I believe that Wild Magic works perfectly for Gale, because let's say maybe after his kind of, you know, infection through the tadpole and him losing his natural wizard abilities, because part of Gale's backstory is he's one of the best wizards in Waterdeep. He was basically an archmage, he was, you know, super powerful, but then when he got infected by the tadpole, it messed up all his magical mojo, his connection to the weave, and as such he went back to level 1. What if that instead of relearning how to use magic as he levels up through the game, and minor spoilers for Gale's storyline here, he actually, maybe even unconsciously, gets his power from the Netherese Orb that's inside him, and begins tapping into the Karsite Weave throughout the campaign without even knowing it. But of course the Karsite Weave is unstable, unnatural, and downright chaotic, so his magic becomes wild, and he gets wild magic surges. Now Gale would just probably attribute this to the fact that the tadpole's messing with his connection to the weave, but in reality it's the Karsite Weave within him augmenting his magic in chaotic ways. And just playing a wild magic sorcerer in general is just such a fun way to play the game. You're going to get a ton of cool effects that just pop off at random, some helpful, some detrimental, some neutral, but always interesting and fun, and it's always going to keep the game, you know, feeling fresh as you play through the game with this character or have him in your party. So I feel like wild magic fits Gale perfectly. And I honestly think that Gale, wizard or not, would pick up on how to use Metamagic, and I really wanted Metamagic for this build because I think it's one of the most fun ways to augment magic in the game. So 100% I want to play as a wild magic sorcerer, evocation wizard for Gale, to be a big chaotic blaster caster. I think this is an awesome build. It's simple but effective and fun. So let's keep going. With our cantrips, we're going to take all of our main damaging cantrips now. Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, and Acid Splash to give us a full rounded kind of elemental lineup that's going to give us a ton of different options for combat. As for our spells, well, we took most of the utility options already, so let's have Magic Missile and Chromatic Orb as our 2 level 1 spells to start. Next up at Sorcerer level 2, we do get to start using Metamagic, and as such we can pick some up, and obviously we're going with Twin Spell for our starter. It is one of the most powerful Metamagics in the game, allowing you to target an additional creature with a spell that only targets one, like Haste. So definitely worth picking this one up, but the other one can be whatever you like, except for Careful Spell. We literally do not need it because Evocation with a Wizard gives us this feature for free. So Distant Spell or Extended Spell are your options, and I personally like Distant Spell, just in case I need that extra bit of range if I wanted to keep our squishy spellcaster way at the back. Distant Spell can help, but it's not necessary. You might find more use out of Extended Spell if you wanted some more. If you wanted to make Haste last longer, for example. But I quite like Distant Spell because usually for something that lasts about 10 turns, that's usually enough. We do get an extra spell at this level, and I quite like Thunderwave here as just kind of a get up off me option, where if somebody gets too close and you can't disengage, just push them away. At level 3 we are going to be getting an extra Metamagic option, and the obvious choice here is Quicken Spell, to be able to cast spells as a bonus action. I know I'm not exactly breaking new ground here, as far as the Sorcerer build goes, with like, you know, the Metamagic choices, but these are good for a reason, and again, I feel like you are nerfing yourself, or just probably will find yourself less useful in more situations if you don't take the kind of powerful Metamagics like Quicken Spell, because having that bonus action spell is so good. And as for our spells, we do get level 2 spells at this point, and I want Scorching Ray, just because it is that really good fire damage spell that you can just go pew 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 with, and it's going to help you clear out kind of weaker enemies really quickly, and then allowing you to focus on the big bads next turn. So definitely want to pick this up. At Sorcerer level 4, we are going to be getting our first feat, and we are just going to take an ability score improvement to be able to bump up our charisma to 18. We are getting this a bit later than normal, total level 6 rather than, you know, 4, but honestly, as you in these early stages of the game of Act 1 and kind of start of Act 2, you will be fine. You don't need these kind of ability scores to be too high right at the start, and you've got enough versatility in your spells to be able to kind of be useful in most situations, but now you're just going to be even more useful. So, as for our cantrips, we do get to pick another one, so let's just grab Poison Spray. And we also do get to pick another spell at this level, and it can really be whatever you want. Anything here will work for this build, it really doesn't matter. Misty Step would be a seriously good option though, because it will allow you to teleport around the map and be able to get into position to blast spells from a safe distance. Definitely one of the better spells you can grab at this level, just to kind of, you know, give yourself a bit of security and maneuverability. At Sorcerer at level 5, we are going to be able to get some more spells, and at this point we are at level 3, and of course we're taking Haste, because Haste is going to give us a ton of really important stuff, like giving us an extra action, more movement speed, and a +2 to our armor class, and we can twin cast this to make ourselves and an ally, or two of our allies, gain these benefits. And so we can just kind of cast this, let our concentration be focused on that, and then just blast cast from a distance all over the battlefield while our enemies attack in our spells, because again, with Evocation, they're not going to get hurt. So basically, this is kind of a support blaster caster build. I mean, it is the typical Sorcerer setup, but it's good for a reason. And again, if this is kind of a series where people like who just want to kind of play the game and want to build for the characters, it makes sense to give them the best. So, you know, Haste. At Sorcerer level 6, we are going to get some more spells, but also our subclass feature, that being Bend Luck. Give a target a 1d4 bonus or penalty on attack rolls, saving throws, or ability checks at the cost of 2 sorcery points, just allowing us to kind of turn the tides of chaos in our favour when we need to. We also do get another level 3 spell at this point, and obviously the big blaster caster option here is Fireball, giving us an 8d6 fireball that, you know, requires a saving throw, but can still do tons of damage to groups of enemies. It is the bog standard kind of like memed to death spell, but it's done that way for a reason, because it is good and you might as well have it. And I think at this point I would encourage maybe replacing a lower level spell if you find that you're not really getting too much use out of them. Perhaps Thunder Wave can be replaced with something like Counterspell at this level, which will allow you to use your reaction to prevent spells from being cast, as long as you either match the spell slot level of the spell being cast, or you use a lower spell slot but roll good enough to do it. If you know how to use Counterspell, you all know how to use Counterspell. I don't know why I'm explaining it. At Sorcerer level 7, we are going to get access to level 4 spells at this point, and I just want to make sure I did actually replace my spell. No, I did not. Why not? I forgot to click confirm, that's why. We are going to get access to level 4 spells at this point, but really, again, if we're just playing a blaster caster, you can take whatever you like here, but I like Ice Storm. It's actually one of my favourite kind of level 4, like, offensive spells. Getting both bludgeoning and cold damage and creating that icy surface for enemies to slip on is super, super good, and I really, really like it. But be warned that even though your allies will not take the damage from this spell, they can still slip on the ice if they move, so make sure if you're going to cast this on an enemy that an ally is fighting, that they are going to be staying still for the most part, or have a way to maybe melt the ice when it's time for them to move, perhaps through a quick firebolt when it's time for them to get moving, which could absolutely work, which again would make your enemies wet, and then make them vulnerable to lightning. See, elemental casting in Baldur's Gate 3 is really fun when you get all the elements, because you can kind of, you know, mix and match. Next up at Sorcerer level 8, we are going to get access to another feat, which means we're going to be taking an ability score improvement and maxing out our charisma to give our spells the most power they can get. And we also do get another spell at this level, and I want Lightning Bolt. Why? Because I do, and I like Lightning Bolt. I think it's a cool spell. I want all the elements. I want fire, ice, and lightning. The shit's cool. Come on. Right. Next up, we are going to be able to grab another spell, and we are up to level 5 spells at this point. And I am going to suggest Cone of Cold. Again, big AoE damage option, or something like Blight, Cloud Kill. Any of these will work. But for this build, I'm kind of focusing on fire, ice, and lightning. Don't know why, I just am. And finally, at Sorcerer level 10, we are going to get another Metamagic option, and I'm going to pick Subtle Spell just on the off chance you get silenced. You're not going to be completely shut down, but, you know, any of these will work, except for Careful Spell, as we said. We also do get another spell at this level, and I am going to choose... I mean, again, you can take whatever spell you like. Like, you have total freedom with this build. And remember, any spells that you don't take, most of them have scrolls, so you can still learn them anyway. I would say, let's go with Cloud Kill. And then for our cantrip, we do get another one, so let's just grab Bone Chill for a necrotic cantrip. And that is the build. I mean, yes, it is a very bog standard, simple sorcerer build that uses wild magic for a bit of fun flavour, and wizard levels in Evocation to be able to make it so our spells aren't going to harm our allies, allowing us to blast away to our heart's content without too much fear of repercussion. But again, if you wanted to play as the Gale origin, we are playing a charisma based caster, meaning you're going to be great in dialogue, especially with the friend's cantrip. So if you want Gale to be the face of the party, he is going to be able to do so very, very well. But I also do think this build works well as just having Gale in your party and just slapping him on in the background, letting him buff your allies and yourself, and then just letting him sit in the back and go pew 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 with his big blasts, and I think it's going to work absolutely perfectly. Because we multi-classed full casters, we still get our full spell slots, and again, we do still get to use scrolls with our wizard levels if I come over here, and so you can learn things like Artistry of War, Telekinesis, Dethrone, Sunbeam, all of that good stuff. So we can get a nice kind of round out here and still be able to use these spells because of our equipment, which we're going to get into now. First up is the most important one, the Warped Headband of Intellect, which is going to set our intelligence score to 17. This can be obtained straight away in Act 1 and will allow you to not have to put points into intelligence in order to be able to use our wizard stuff, which is awesome. You might find that you might want to finagle some stats around to try and get your intelligence higher than 17, maybe if you can, but that's quite tricky, so I'd recommend just slapping this on and kind of just hoping for the best. 17 should be enough for the game, but you might find it is a little bit harder to use your wizard spells in the very, very late game, but things like Artistry of War, for example, which doesn't require an attack roll, or things that don't require attack rolls in general, that use spell saving throws, because we are going to have equipment that increases our spell save DC, you will still be able to get this stuff off quite a lot, but let's get back into it. Next up is the Cloak of the Weave. This is an Act 3 option, but cloaks I don't find it really important to have to keep one on throughout the entire game. They just kind of give little bonus effects, so don't feel like you need to have a cloak in the meantime, just grab this when you can. It's going to give you a +1 bonus to your spell save DC and spell attack rolls, which is awesome. Even with our lower intelligence score, that is going to bump up our wizard spells as well as our sorcerer spells. And you also get Absorb Elements. You can absorb an elemental damage attack once per short rest. You take half the damage from the next elemental attack targeting you, and deal an additional 1d6 of that element type on your next attack. Basically, once per short rest, take less damage, deal more damage. Pretty good. Next up is the Robe of the Weave, another Act 3 option. You get this around the same time you get the Cloak. It has the same effect of giving you a +1 bonus to your spell save DC and attack rolls, but it also has a couple of additional benefits, namely +2 to your armor class, but also whenever the wearer succeeds a saving throw against a spell, they regain 1d6 hit points, so it actually gives you a little bit of sustained healing. I mainly wanted this for the bump to our armor class and our spell save DC for our wizard spells, but it's not essential, so if you want an earlier game option that might work out a bit better for you, there is the Potent Robe. The Potent Robe allows your cantrips to deal additional damage equal to your charisma modifier, so if you want to be a bit more of a cantrip blaster, this will work out quite nicely. But also at the beginning of your turn, of the wearer's turn, the robe activates, granting them temporary hit points equal to their charisma modifier, so you would be a bit more tanky, and you get a +1 to your armor class rather than a +2. This is an early Act 2 option that will serve you really, really well, but I still think I would recommend the Robe of the Weave once you get into Act 3, because again, it's going to give you a bit more utility when it comes to being able to use your wizard spells with higher spell save DCs. Next up we have the Spell Might Gloves. When casting a spell that requires an attack roll, you can take a -5 penalty to the roll to deal an additional 1d8 damage. Now these are just like if you want to go extra on the power. It's basically Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master but for spells, but this is again an Act 3 option and might be a bit overkill, especially since not a lot of our spells actually use attack rolls. So if you wanted to swap this out for what I would personally choose as an Act 2 option, you can go with the Daredevil Gloves. The wearer gains a +1 bonus on all spell attack rolls, which is good, but also your ranged spell attacks are made as melee spell attacks when you are adjacent to a hostile creature, so you are not restrained in the type of spells you can use if for some reason an enemy is close to you, because normally a ranged spell attack would have disadvantage to hit if an enemy is close to you. However, the Daredevil Gloves prevent that, allowing you to be able to get enemies away from you by just straight up killing them. There may be some other options here that you could go with, like the gloves that, make cantrips, or I think that make cantrips cast as a bonus action, or allow like one spell to target multiple people once per short rest. There's a few other things, but the Daredevil Gloves or the Spell Might Gloves will probably work best overall. And then finally, just to round out our kind of options here, we just have the Evasive Shoes for a +1 to our armor class. Again, even with Mage Armour, our lower dexterity does make our AC a bit harder to manage, so, you know, just having that extra buff does work. As you can see with Mage Armour up in all of our equipment, we do have an 18 in our armor class, which is pretty good. It's not high, usually around the end game you like to have 20, but 18 is perfectly serviceable for someone who's not going to be a frontline combatant. As for our accessories, we have the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation, so that whenever we use any of our elemental cantrips, our spellcasting modifier is added to the damage dealt. Basically, this is Agonizing Blast from the Warlock, but for fire, cold, ice, lightning, thunder. I technically said cold twice. You get my point. It's basically just a buff to our cantrips, so we don't have to use our spell slots all the time. Now, this next ring is a ring that I'm probably never ever going to get to show in a build video again. This is the Ring of Evasion. When you fail a dexterity saving throw, you can use your reaction to succeed instead. This is super good. There's no restriction on this other than you have to use your reaction. So why would I never ever use this item? Well, you only get this if you play as the Gale Origin. And yes, you get it right at the start of the game, which is super powerful for the early game. It gets given to you in your first long rest if you are playing the Gale Origin, so if you are playing as Gale, you can get this super awesome ring right away, and it actually is his, so it makes sense to have it on a build based around him. But if you're not playing the Gale Origin and you just have him as a party member, you won't be able to get this item, so you'll have to swap this ring out for something else. But pretty much anything will work on Gale that isn't like melee based, so just, you know, use your better judgment. But if you are actually playing as Gale, then you absolutely want this ring. And finally, we have the Ring of the Fey Wild Sparks. While your Sorcerer's Tides of Chaos feature is active, you will always trigger a Wild Magic Surge when casting spells. Now, I just realised I forgot to talk about the Tides of Chaos feature, which is a toggleable passive feature, which you can use to gain advantage on your next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, but it increases the chance of a Wild Magic Surge afterwards. This basically just guarantees that those Wild Magic Surges are going to occur rather than having it be a chance, meaning you can constantly create chaos all over the battlefield and just have some fun, god damn it. Unfortunately, this ring is only available in Act 3 though, so you'll have to use something else until then, and you might find something more useful than this. However, I just like, if you're gonna play a Wild Magic Sorcerer, go all the way with it, come on. Have some fun, bring some chaos. Here it is, you just toggle that shit on. And you got it. So yeah, that is the build. Overall, again, it's simple but effective. It's wild and crazy, but also really fun. It's just cool, and I feel like Wild Magic Sorcerer with Gale's story and lore just fits perfectly. I just realized I forgot to talk about the staff. But it's just any decent staff that you like. I've gone with the Markiplier staff here, as I've always called it, which is just going to give you a +1 bonus to spell safety, C, and attack rolls, which is great. Arcane Battery, which means your next spell doesn't use a spell slot, great. It's a +2 weapon, and you get Kareska's Favor, which will allow you to choose an element in your gain spells and a buff based on that element. Pretty cool. But an Act 1 option could be the Spell Sparker, but for a build which would just give you lightning charges whenever you deal damage with a spell, which can help. But really, the staff does not matter, just pick whatever you like, but the Markiplier staff would be a good endgame staff to get. So, for real this time, that is the build. The combat footage should be showing now, and as you can see, I just decided, you know what, so I start blasting. I just went absolute balls to the wall, used all of my spell slots, went pew 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 pew, and it's just awesome seeing the elemental effects fill the arena. You know, just enemies dying left and right. This is a super powerful build, and I think you will get a ton out of it. It is just so fun to play, and again, it's so simple that anyone can really get a lot out of it. You just click the button with the big number and let it go, boom. But yeah, as for the end of video stuff, not too much to say today. Again, I'm recording these Origin character videos in one big bulk package, so overall, probably not going to have too many kind of channel updates to go on. These are all just kind of, you know, being uploaded. These are kind of being made and uploaded around the same time, so that they can be released over the Christmas holidays, like I said in my Karlach video. So I won't keep tarrying on here. I'll just leave you with the combat footage, and I will see you all next time. I think that went pretty well.
will have your head!
Your turn now! Round's coming up, fast! Need to do something. Full go! Full go! Come a little closer.
Take this ship, or Zarya will have your head.